Welcome to our show, Lee.
Thank you, Savannah. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. What are the vibes? What are you bringing in?
Oh, I've had a nice day. I got to build a fire early this morning. It was cold enough to build a fire, so worked. I've been reading a lot for interviews, and so yeah, things are good.
And you got new glasses.
I did get new glasses.
And a haircut.
I did get both new glasses and a haircut.
What's the refresh about?
Because my hair was long, and I could hardly see through my glasses. So I got new glasses, like, oh my goodness, I can't believe how well I can see.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
How strong are your prescriptions?
The last time I asked the doctor, I said, what am I like on the 20/20 scale? He said, I do not have an E large enough to answer that question.
Lee, you're kidding.
No, I have terrible vision. Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah. I think the last time somebody told me, they said they thought I was something like 720 or something like that.
Has it always been like that, or is it just as you've gotten a little bit older?
I started, I got very bad eyesight, very bad nearsightedness when I was in middle school.
Oh.
I started wearing glasses in second grade.
Okay.
I was the geeky, nerdy one with thick Coke
I
bottle
always
glasses.
love when kids have sunglasses, or just regular glasses, not sunglasses.
Oh, man, I've got some pictures that I just look back and think, oh, my goodness, it's amazing I made it through middle school without getting utterly beaten up all the time.
Yeah.
I was so geeky.
And you did.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Only a few fights. Fighting was kind of a thing in Alabama public schools.
Lee, you got in fights?
I typically, in my, I guess, morally self-righteous way, would get in the middle of fights to try to break people up. And I remember one time getting stabbed in the face with a pencil, and another time getting walloped, and so that kind of. And I did get in one fight with one guy just on my own one time, and it was just more like a fifth graders wrestling on the floor kind of thing. Yeah.
So you were still young?
Yeah.
Or was it serious fighting?
No, this is all more middle school kind of.
Pure.
Except for the pencil in the face.
That felt vicious.
Yeah.
One time in second grade, a girl bit me on the playground. That's the biggest fight I ever got.
Did you hit her back? Bite her back?
No, I was on the swing and she wanted it and she bit me.
Yeah.
And I had the marks. I had to go get it tested because if humans bite other humans, it can be dangerous.
Yeah. I don't know why we're talking about this, but since we are, it reminded me of another story about, I think I was in 7th or 8th grade. And I remember one time this guy wanted to sit where I was sitting. Mm-hmm. And he came over and he said, get up. And I said, no. And so he just reared back and just smacked me really hard in the face. And I just sat there and I didn't do anything because I'm thinking, turn the other cheek and do not retaliate.
Really? You were thinking that young?
I was very much thinking that.
Wow.
And then my PE coach came up and he was really pissed at the guy who hit me, and he was just as pissed at me and said, why didn't you hit him back? And he really let me have it for not hitting him back. And then another episode I remember talking about creative nonviolence.
I was going to say, you're practicing creative nonviolence?
This one bully, one day at lunch, was sitting across from me at the cafeteria table. And I don't know if you had these. Did you have those like green plastic trays that they would wash in school? So we used to have these like green polystyrene, I don't know, trays that you would...
That are like organized?
Yeah. And they would dollop your food out, and then you'd take it up to the cafeteria and they would clean it off with a steam washer and then recirculate them. So anyway, I was sitting there with my green tray with the food on it, and there was something in that, I remember that middle tray on the far side away from me that the bully across the table wanted. And so he leaned across the table and put his face right in front of that container of food on my tray and spat in it. And then he looked up and he said, you want that?
Yeah.
And so I don't know where I got this, but I leaned over that very same spot in my tray into that bit of food and spat in it.
Oh my God.
And then I said, no, I don't want it. Do you? I was so proud of myself.
I I think what makes me so happy about these stories is that you have been you from the dawn of time.
Oh.
When you were like outsmarting his bullying.
Oh.
Sweetly.
Yeah. Or what, or something. It's
What
something.
did your friend group look like in that era? Like, did you have a large group of friends, a couple of friends? What was the scene?
I had a handful of good friends, middle school and high school. I was in a class that we had a whole lot of classes together, and we got to know each other so well that we knew how to mess with the teachers. We could like play off of each other, and there were several times I remember this poor pre-algebra teacher we sent out of the classroom crying several times because we would just give her such a hard time, and we knew how to do it. And so they finally broke us up as a class because we had gotten so bad. But anyway, yeah, I had a lot of great friends.
Because you were terrorizing her.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It would be hard to be a teacher, especially to young boys. Like, they just don't, they're not smart yet.
No idea how anybody does that. They're to be lauded and celebrated. And
not just young boys, it's all of us.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't pay them nearly enough.
No, we don't.
No, we really don't.
My senior year Christian dynamics teacher, Coach Owen, who, by the way, just messaged me on Facebook a couple of weeks ago. I love that man. He was an angel from heaven. He's now a pastor. And apparently I terrorized him. I don't know how I did, but I did. And Coach Owen was so sweet. And he took me out of the classroom in the middle of class. Once again, I was in high school, so I knew better. And he looked at me and he said, "Savannah, why do you hate me?" I was like, oh no. And I actually think, if I remember correctly, I can't remember what I said to him, but it was the first time it occurred to me that I could hurt his feelings. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Where I felt like he was in some way a teacher, therefore he didn't take me seriously or was invincible. And the fact that I had hurt his feelings was a shock to me.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I mean, you know, as someone who's taught for 25 years or did teach for 25 years, I'm no longer. It's always shocked me that college students don't realize they can hurt professors' feelings. And I think some of them finally get that, but a lot of them, I think sometimes they don't have the foggiest idea that the way they're acting in a class actually matters to the people's feelings.
Yeah, that they are also human beings too.
Yep.
And now that all of my friends are teachers who have lives, it's like, oh, these students don't realize that the teachers don't sleep at school. Like they go home and they have family and friends and they're doing things. Yeah. This is a pro teacher appreciation moment. Yes, you all are doing great.
Applaud all the teachers.
Well, I wanted to read a couple of reviews before we get started. The first one is from our episode on Knives Out.
Knives Out.
Emily Reed.
I do say. I enjoyed that episode.
I did too. Emily Reed said, "Love Lee going full Seinfeld at 47:30-ish. Grateful for the conversation y'all have." And this is what you said at 47:30.
Why not just say, "Hey, thank you"? Yeah, we don't get too many of that. So thanks. And move on. Come on. Give me a break. Stop whining all the time.
It's stop whining all the time for me. Stop whining all the time.
Yes. Yeah, I fear that sounds like a old guy thing to say.
No, it feels very Seinfeld to me. Emily, great job with your
Thanks,
analysis.
Emily. Nice to hear from you.
And then Doug Hunt left this comment on our episode that we finished right before our Christmas break. He said, "Thanks for being so real and honest when discussing sensitive topics," which that's when we talked about the family stuff. And I also got a couple of DMs about that episode. So that really seemed to make an impact on people. So we're so excited.
Yes. Thank you all.
That it seems to be
Grateful that you're
resonating.
listening.
Let's start the show. Welcome to the Subtext, where we go beneath the headlines and beyond the obvious. I'm Savannah Locke.
I'm Lee C. Camp.
If you like what we're doing and want to help us get the show in front of more people, please do us a favor by following and rating wherever you listen. Leave a review, give us 5 stars, hype us up. If you want to watch full episodes, you can find that on YouTube and Spotify. You can follow the show at The Subtext Show. me at Savannah_Locke, and Lee at Lee C. Camp. And if you have any questions or suggestions for the show, just DM us on Instagram at the Subtext Show. That's on that. All right, today we are talking about something serious again. I don't know why they've been very intense topics, but this one is very interesting and I think you're going to care about it. We're going to be talking about gambling, sports betting, and prediction markets.
Fascinating.
What do you know? What is your experience in this world?
Very little. Very little.
So you haven't placed any bets on sports?
I have gambled in Monte Carlo.
Nice.
But otherwise...
What were you doing in Monte Carlo?
When I was just out of college, I and 3 college buddies did a 6-week backpacking trip around Europe.
Lee, that's great.
And so we spent a night or 2 in the French Riviera. Mm-hmm. And so we decided we would give ourselves a budget and go in one night to the casino in Monte Carlo. And I'm trying to remember if I've ever gambled anymore. I've bought maybe 2 or 3 lottery tickets in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And
have you ever made money?
I do not think so.
So in Monte Carlo, you didn't walk out with a bunch of cash?
No, I lost my $25 and I left. Yeah.
Dang it.
Yeah.
Bummer, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the truth is that the more you play, the more likely you are to lose.
Right. Yeah. Well, I assume that's true, especially for people who don't know what they're doing.
Yes, exactly. There are professionals who I think do have a better shot. Yeah. But okay, well, I thought I would start in 2 places. Number 1, defining a little bit the difference between prediction markets, sports betting, and gambling.
Okay.
And this is going to be in laywoman's terms. So prediction markets are like Polymarket. So at the Golden Globes, which
Polymarket is a company that does this.
Yes, I think there's another one too called like Kalshi or something. But
okay.
Did you watch the Golden Globes or no?
No.
Okay. Well, we talked about the Golden Globes on last week's episode. Mm-hmm. And on the Golden Globes, Polymarket actually was a sponsor. And so up on the screen would be the likelihood of which person or movie was going to win the certain award. Does that make any sense?
That's like on the TV screen or on a screen in the room at the Golden Globe?
On the TV screen when you're watching, so that you can go on their app and place your bet.
That's running while you're watching the Golden Globes.
Yeah. So like for best podcast, the Subtext. It would be the Subtext, it would be Armchair Expert, and it would be Good Hang with Amy Poehler. And it would say the Subtext, 95% winning.
Of course.
Of course.
Yes.
And then it would be like 2.5, 2.5.
Yeah, sorry about that, Dax.
And then, sorry, Dax. Sorry, Amy Poehler. And then people can go on their app, and based on those percentages, they can place their bets. But with a prediction market, it operates like the stock market. So I could place a bet and then 5 minutes later take my bet back out. But if the percentage has risen since then, like if it's higher likelihood that where I've placed a bet is going to win, then I might make some money. But if it's tanked, then I might lose some money. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, so it's in effect, it's analogous to futures on the stock market, but it has zero financial good except for the individual or the company that's getting you to place your bet.
I mean, yeah. Are you saying it has zero individual or zero good at all in general? Like, are you making a moral judgment on that, or are you asking me if other people would?
Well, with the way I understand, I understand a bit about the stock market and I understand a bit about options and futures and all that kind of stuff. And one argument that's made for things like options is that it increases liquidity, which is crucial for a functioning economy.
Okay.
And so it's getting more money out there and allowing people to leverage that for presumably some social economic good.
Right.
But in this case, there's no social economic good. It could potentially be a private, individualized economic good if you win the bet, or a good financial good for the company
if you lose it.
Exactly. But that's the end of it.
Yes, that's the end of it.
Yeah.
So the example that they used when I was reading to learn what prediction markets were or what polymarket was, is like back in the day when like Andrew Cuomo was running against Mamdani and everyone thought Cuomo was going to be the sure winner. And this was like 12 months in advance. You could have placed your bet or bought stock in Cuomo winning. And if you had sold it 2 months before the election happened when his chances were lesser, like you would have lost
money.
Does that make any sense? Lost all of that money versus if you had bought on Mamdani, then your stock in him would have gone super high up. So it's not the same thing as gambling, not the same thing as sports betting. So I'm just trying to like create some definitions from my understanding. Once again, if I'm wrong, someone leave it in the comments. Okay. Second is sports betting.
I guess I would say that it is gambling, but it's not, it has other complicating or mitigating or other structures around it as opposed to more traditional gambling.
Because gambling as of right now is not legal in many states online. Gambling in a casino you can do, but the reason I'm saying it's not gambling is just because of the online factor.
I see.
Like on prediction markets, you can do that online right now. Sports betting is like FanDuel. Everyone has seen these before. Different companies where you place bets on different sports teams winning or losing, or you can get more specific around how many points or whether or not, I know nothing else, but like if Travis Kelce is going to get X amount of points or whatever. And so you can get very specific into that. And so that's what sports betting is. And that is what has kind of taken off like crazy since 2018. And we'll talk about why. And then lastly is gambling. So gambling has typically been in casinos, brick and mortar, and now is becoming potentially legalized in different places. It's called iGaming or something like that, where it's like you can play the slots on your phone and place bets. And it's like gambling, through your phone. So those are the three different spheres, to my understanding. So I want to talk about this because people are saying, like Michael Lewis, who is kind of like a leading voice in this area right now, that gambling is becoming an epidemic, which feels like a very strong term, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So he has been doing different podcasts and wrote a couple of books on this. And his big claim is that after sports gambling started getting legalized state by state in 2018, it didn't just change laws, it changed the whole culture, where sports betting went from something you had to seek out to something baked into everyday life. And so he talks about how the accessibility to sports betting has been detrimental to our culture because everyone is now placing bets and it's very unlikely that they'll ever make their money back. And so he talked specifically as it relates to men. So right now, sports betting is massive among college students. I think the statistic was something over 60% of male college students have placed a bet on sports.
Fascinating.
Isn't that wild?
That's wild.
All because of the accessibility. And then the last thing I want to say before we go into it is, in 2018, the reason why this is on our consciousness, in 2018, the Supreme Court overturned a 1992 act that George H.W. Bush put into play, which opened up the doors for all of this to happen. It opened up the doors for states to legalize sports betting. And the Supreme Court basically said they know that it's a fraught practice, but they didn't believe it was the federal government's role to ban it nationwide. And as soon as they overturned this act, which made it legal to now bet on sports, 39 states plus Washington, D.C. now offer legal sports betting in some form. And Tennessee won't even allow casinos.
And Tennessee is allowing it?
I was just wondering, how do we feel about betting? What do we think it's doing to our culture? What do we think it forms in us? Those kinds of questions.
Yeah. I guess the first thing I would want to say is I like the way you asked the question. And, I'm allergic to legalistic framing of moral questions. And so I much rather ask the question, what kind of people are we becoming by doing this thing? And that trend seems to really be problematic on numerous levels. But I think that, in so many ways. Think about the play and sports here just a minute. In my mind, play is a non-instrumentalized social endeavor that brings all sorts of other goods with it, right? Community, the drama of it, the bonding of it, the moral excellence, physical excellence that comes from it. These are all really great things that come from potentially from play and from athletics. But everything these days is increasingly commodified. And so there's one level at which this doesn't surprise me simply because everything is increasingly commodified. But that's what unfettered capitalism does, is it commodifies everything. And so it shouldn't surprise us, I suppose, that people have found a way to commodify sport and commodify play. But that's a sort of acid that will continue to eat away at all sorts of things. And, it tracks along with, I don't know when NIL started. You familiar with that?
Yes.
Yep. Name, image, and likeness stuff where college athletes can now get paid. I guess even high school athletes can get paid, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know what year NIL started, but it sounds like the sports betting preceded it a bit. But, again, with everything getting commodified, it just eats away at the social goods of these endeavors. And so I think it's really problematic.
Yeah, that piece, in my notes, I called it the financialization of everything, but I do like commodification of everything, because that also is the concerning piece for me about all of this, maybe more than what I would just see as not being a wise way to use money, where it's I would not use my money in that way. But I think the more important and deeper thing is, why has everything become something that we can make money off of?
Yeah.
And going to the sports piece, going to the Golden Globes, and then remember how we talked about Stranger Things, episode 9, that didn't come out. On Polymarket, there was a bet that almost $14 million worth of people had placed bets on whether or not a 9th episode would come out. And so everything has become something that we can place bets on and put money into. And that piece is what's really concerning to me, that we can't separate things from money.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of, tail wagging the dog kind of stuff that could come from that. At what point does a lot of people betting that such and so is going to happen in the future become a mechanism by such and so happens in the future? I don't know. That's going to be a really interesting case study. Let's say you get people taking bets on whether or not there's going to be insurrection in Minnesota.
Nice. Yeah.
And you've got a couple 100,000 people that have a whole lot at stake in there being such an insurrection in Minnesota. Well, is that not the tail wagging the dog? And then there you go. Well, and then a couple 100,000 people make a little bit of money, and yet you've wrecked a state.
Yep.
So there could be all sorts of tail wagging the dog kind of things coming from that. But it's just the disposition behind it all is really troubling to me.
With the sports, I read this article on ESPN, and with sports betting, they talked about that, tail wagging the dog, I guess, which is that if people place massive amounts of money on certain teams winning, they're nervous about violence against different referees and sports players. And there have already been some examples of things like that happening, I think just through violent threats online right now. But if people bet their livelihoods on some of this stuff and it feels like there's a high stake in these bets, then yes, who knows what would happen if things don't turn out the way that they want them to, or even just things being rigged then.
Yeah. This is reminding me of, I've used this in my ethics classes a lot of times through the years, but Alistair McIntyre, when he's talking about a practice, so a practice is any sort of endeavor that has goods internal to the practices that you see as intrinsic to that. So think about the practice of medicine. There are certain goods that are intrinsic to that, of healing, being present to those who are sick, research and development of cures for people that are suffering, so forth and so on. So when you think about the practice of medicine, well, there are all those sorts of things that are inherent to the practice of medicine. And then there are what he calls external goods. And external goods are the things that facilitate a practice but are not intrinsic to the goods of the practice. So, for example, facilities, right? You need a facility like a hospital building or medical schools or whatever, because they facilitate the practice of those goods. They facilitate the practice and the goods intrinsic to that practice, but they're not the point of the practice, right? You don't have the practice of medicine so that you can build big shiny hospitals. That's not the point. Or even titles, right? Doctor, nurse, RN, LPN, all of those things help facilitate the rapid attention to people who need cure and help, right, in a hospital. And so forth and so on. So what McIntyre says is that any practice grows corrupt when you seek the external goods as an end in and of itself, as opposed to always seeing them as a means to the end. And so what people are doing when they're betting on this is that they're corrupting the practice. There are goods internal to play,
Yes.
but you're corrupting them by making it about the bet and making it about the money.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an incredible insight from McIntyre that we can apply to all of these sorts of things and saying, you're utterly corrupting these things by doing all of this stuff.
That's goodly.
Well, that's Alistair McIntyre. He's good.
Yeah, that was a good telling, though, too. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the way that we treat grades sometimes in high school, where it's like if the goal is to get an A, then you bypass the actual point of like learning.
That's so funny because Alistair McIntyre famously, he was at Notre Dame for a while I was there, though I never got to have him. But the rumor was that he really did not like people who had a 4.0.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Because he wanted you to have been brave enough to not worry about your GPA.
Oh my gosh.
And fail.
Then we're on the same, I'm on the same trail, which
Yeah.
is crazy. Yeah, no, that's a super good point, I think. It does feel like it corrupts something that could potentially be something really good for communities.
Right.
And it does seem like it has implications that people aren't thinking through necessarily in the long term, not the least of which is addiction. Like that people are literally getting addicted to this. And I think I was reading some studies from a psychology place in Florida, and they said that the uptick of people reporting gambling addiction over the last 3 years has been astronomical.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because now, instead of having to go drive 20 miles to the nearest casino or to like bars to make a bet, etc., people are able to just pull out their phones. And there was one interview of a college student who said that it's the first thing that he checks every morning are his bets.
Yeah. Well, and, I would love to see the way in which the stuff is rigged in favor of the companies against the people playing. I don't know enough about this to know what that looks like, but it's definitely worth asking about, right? How much of this money is actually going back to people that are playing, even if they win?
Well, because these companies wouldn't keep doing this if the people were actually winning.
Yeah. Right.
Which is what's so disturbing. Yeah. This year, what I'm really curious about is the current regulation drama, which revolves around whether or not states should allow these betting companies to deduct their free bet promotions from their taxable revenue. So right now, in a lot of states, these companies are basically getting it looks like donations or charity when they do their promo. So right now, if you went on FanDuel, it would say, hey, if you sign up for a free account, then we're going to give you $300 that you can bet as much as you want to, but you can't take that money out. You have to put it towards bets. And right now, in many states, FanDuel is not being taxed on that money. And so there's a lot of current state regulation drama of figuring out we should probably start taxing them on this money that are like basically keeping people addicted. That is being used to keep people addicted. And another way it gets even more disturbing too in the regulation sense is if you go on FanDuel and you are placing 4 bets and they know on the back end because of their algorithm that you are likely to lose all 4 of those bets, they will send you a free promotion without you knowing. Like they won't tell you, oh, you're going to lose these bets, therefore. But they'll send you a free promotion before those bets are over and say, hey, we're going to give you 2 free bets. You can use them anywhere you'd like. But that money that they're giving towards their customers, they're not having to pay taxes on. But they're reaping the benefits of you saying, okay, like I'm going to get my other dopamine hit and I'm going to put more money in. And that's where it gets very corrupt for me.
It's rotten.
To the core.
Yeah. I mean, it's preying off of, it's predatory in my mind.
Which just gets me thinking about the role of regulation. I don't know if I told you about this, but I had a conversation with someone about AI last year. And this person was basically like, we just need Jesus. And I said, yeah, and we need government regulation. And they said, well, if people knew Jesus, then they wouldn't need government regulation. And that conversation sticks with me, like with stuff like this.
It makes my scalp itch.
Me too. I struggled. But it makes me struggle with stuff like this because I'm like, no, we actually need regulation because people are getting addicted to something and we could do something about it. What do you think about that?
From a theological perspective, yeah, we live between the times, right? Between the inauguration of the kingdom of God and the consummation of the kingdom of God. Mm-hmm. And there are all sorts of forces that are destructive that are still around and about. All of the handmaidens of death are still doing their work. And so, let's set aside for a moment questions about Constantinian Christianity and how you think about having control and power. And just ask the question about, what is at its best governmental policy is a question about what kind of community do we want to have together. Mm-hmm. And of course, again, at its best, governmental policy is simply a nonviolent commitment of how we're going to do life together. Mm-hmm. Just like driving on the right side of the road in the United States. It doesn't, I think the Lord will bless me in what I'm about to say. It doesn't matter if you have Jesus or not. Get on the right side of the road and stay over there.
Yes.
And don't be a reckless idiot.
Right.
Right? Yes. So that's crazy to me. Mm-hmm. And so the question is always, what kind of community are we seeking to be? And what kind of community are we seeking to become? And again, at its best, these policies are about that, right? So politics, the word politics is, one way to think about what the word politics means is it's the art of arranging the affairs of a community. Mm-hmm. And so that's what policy is it's concrete stipulations about how we're going to arrange the affairs of our community. And whether you have Jesus or not, we've got to do that.
Yeah. And there are people who do have Jesus that are in these systems and could be helped by these systems being more regulated.
Yeah, right. In the absence of, I think one of the things that's so distressing to me about all this is that kind of people just need Jesus stuff doesn't take power seriously. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have things in place that address power, then the powerless and those who are potentially marginalized or riddled with their own moral failings just get screwed over. Mm. And so, think about the way some people talk, for example, just about the lottery. Mm-hmm. The lottery is just a regressive tax on the poor because most of the people who play the lottery are poor and they don't win. Yep. They don't get their money back. Yep. And then that money, by and large, is going to middle class and upper middle class kids so they can go to college for free or pay less tuition. Yeah. And so it's like directly taking money. I don't know about directly, but I don't know the numbers. But at least historically, the funnel is it's taking money from the poor, giving it to people who have more, and saying, "Here, go to college," right? And it's rotten. Mm-hmm. It's just rotten. And so this is just all of that on steroids.
Yes, which goes to the point of when I was listening to a couple of episodes this weekend, I found out that people can use credit cards on these apps, and they go into debt over it. And so it's using money that you don't have to bet on something you'll never win. And if you do win, then you're likely to lose it because the dopamine hits you and you think you're going to win again and you won't. And it's very predatory. Yeah. It really made me very concerned when I was listening to it. I kind of got fired up.
Yeah. Yeah, for good reason.
But there's so much lobbying happening with our state regulators. It brought in $66 billion last year. And so...
What? The revenue to the companies?
The commercial gaming industry.
Yeah.
Brought in $66 billion last year. So these corporations have huge interest in keeping this legal nationwide and in each of these states. And so it's difficult I think, to see this getting rolled back at this point because, like in Tennessee, for example, we don't allow brick and mortar casinos, but we do allow sports betting. And that revenue is being pumped into our state. And that's how they got it legalized, was when these companies came and said, look how much money is going to be poured into your state through sports betting. But to me, the moral issue with that is, yeah, but at what cost?
Right.
And before we wrap up, I wanted to talk about the only case study that I heard on these podcasts that I was listening to this week, which is Australia, randomly, that Australia has very relaxed regulations around sports betting and gambling. How cute would that be? No, that would make it sound less harmful. Around sports betting and gambling. And the new data is saying that around 3 million people in Australia are engaged in some form of harmful gambling, which is linked to financial stress, family violence, and poor mental health. And Australians are the world's biggest losers per capita, gambling away $25 billion a year.
Lord have mercy.
And I guess that they've even loosened their regulations around brick and mortar casinos. So those are popping up left and right, which makes the accessibility there, which makes the gambling addiction become even worse. And several people in Australian politics have been calling it their biggest health crisis.
Incredible.
Disturbing, right?
Very disturbing.
Yeah. So basically, this has been a downer of an episode, and I do want to name that.
There's one other downer thing that you mentioned that we haven't mentioned yet, and that is the way these algorithms are gamed to keep the losers on and the winners
This
get
is
booted.
what's so dark. I don't want to sound like so Rage Against the Machine, but I kind of am. So there are professional bettors who are really good at this and can win a lot of money. But the minute that they get on these apps and start winning too much, they get kicked off. So there are algorithms on the back end of these different like betting apps that will notice when people are betting too well. And if they start winning too much money, their accounts get deactivated.
Unbelievable.
Which is also disturbing because it shows that they're not there. Like if anyone ever actually conceived that they were there to help people make money, I doubt that they did. But they're certainly not going to allow for people to make really good money.
Yeah, that's all horrible. Yeah, maybe we treat this whole downer of an episode as a public service announcement for people to pay attention and find out what's going on with this stuff and to try to look out for people around you and help them stay away.
Agreed, because it doesn't seem like it leads to any sort of good fruit.
No. Yeah. I mean, it makes me think of Gotham City.
Nice. Nice.
I mean, really though, right? When
Where's
you're
Batman?
increasingly corrupting
Yes.
all so much, and you're putting, who knows? I would be fascinated to see the kind of numbers of people that are finding themselves in deep bondage, either financially or personally, to this stuff. And so, yeah, it is really horrible.
Yeah, it's really disturbing. And I do hope that different states will start rolling back some of the allowances that they've made. Like particularly the tax-free thing makes no sense to me. You're incentivizing a company to incentivize people to stay addicted to gambling.
Yeah. Is anyone finding some good traction forward on getting it more regulated?
I don't know from a political standpoint, but if anyone's curious about this subject in general, definitely look up Michael Lewis, who is doing a ton of research in this area.
Michael Lewis is the bomb. He's great.
You should have him on No Silent Endeavor.
I like his stuff a lot, yeah. Yes, I've thought about it for a long time, so maybe we shall have to do that soon.
Yeah, and you can talk about gambling in more detail because this was just me listening for 4 days to as much as I could.
Yeah. Fascinating. Thank you.
Nice. Great episode.